to this lesson, rounded corners. We are going to be looking at how to create rounded corners, and we usually use the border radius property to give any element rounded corners. So I'm going to just switch back into the edit view here because I want to display what I mean. So this is an example, and I just picked this shape from the insert shapes tab right in PowerPoint. And what this gives me is it gives me a way to demonstrate what rounded corners is. For example, when I move this, you can see that I have this element that is a complete uh, square, right? If it's a square. Now, if I wanted to create rounded elements, right, all I have to do is to shift this a little bit inside, right? So the length from the edge to wherever this yellow marker is gives you uh, the corner, right, for your rounded corner. So you can see that the rounded corner starts from this yellow spot right here and to this other spot, which is equal distance here. So that's what gives. So as I move this, it gives me a wider corner, right? And then I'm sure if I keep going till I get to the 50% mark, which is right here, it should technically give me a circle, but we can't see that right here. But it should technically start giving me a circle. So the point, yep, and maybe we could. So when I move this up, you can see that as soon as it gets to the 50%, it's technically a circle. So we're going to take a look at that in the code section. And so just let's delve right into the code. Okay, so right now I just have a simple HTML, which just gives me an H1 and a P, right? And right here I have rounded, and I have to spell this right. Okay, so now spelled right. So rounded borders using border radius property, and I have a paragraph that, and this is not the right way to. Okay, this has a rounded border. So if I just refresh this page and wait for it to refresh, so now we have rounded bodies and this has a rounded corner. So we are going to explore the styling of this. So I'm going to go to my style section. I'm going to call the ID. So it's going to be hash and then round. I'm going to style this. So now I'm going to add, first let's add the background so we can see the transition. So the background should be maybe red, and that is definitely how to spell background. Okay, so now if I refresh this, so now we have our background color, which is set to red. Good. So the next thing that I want to add here will be maybe some padding. I'm gonna set it to 20 pixels. I'm gonna set this to 20 pixels, and then I'm gonna set the width, maybe 150 pixels, and then the height to 150 pixels. So look more like a square. Okay. So now when I refresh this, so now uh we have our round, but this has no rounded corners just yet, right? So this is a complete misnomer, but we are going to do that right now. So now let's add our border radius, and I'm going to set this to say 20 pixels, right? And I'm going to refresh it. So now we have our rounded corner, right? So I could also use, instead of pixel, maybe I could also use uh percentage, right? So I know 50% will bring this radius all the way here. So 25% will be here, so maybe around 10%. Okay, so let's do about 10% and see how it looks. So let me refresh this. And you see it still takes the same shape. Okay, so and maybe let's try the 50%, right? Let's try the 50% and see what we get. And would you look at that? So we have our circle. So that works. Okay, so now what I want to do is to add maybe a border to this, right? So I'm going to add a border. I'm going to do border and gonna make it 2 pixel solid. This is red, so I guess green, solid green. Okay, and when I refresh this, and maybe I can now bring this back to 10%. Okay, refresh this. Nice. So now you see the green border around it. So you could also add, if you wanted to, instead of the background, you could also really add a background image if you wanted to by just using the background and then pass in the URL of the image, which all we are not going to do because we have done that in previous lessons. What if we wanted like different radius for for each of the corners, right? Let's see how we can do that. And for that, I want to just create a different div here, and I'll call this round 2 so that I can style it differently. And so now I'm just going to assume that it's going to take the exact same style, round 2. And only thing is I want to make this bigger so we can see. Maybe 3 should be fine. And then I want to change this color to maybe yellow or yellow green. Why not? Meaning this has to change to red. Okay, so this is what I have. So first, let me refresh it so we see how it looks like. Good. So this is how it looks like. This has a rounded corner. So what we are going to be doing now is targeting the corners individually, right? So let's look at that. So we are going to start with the top left, right? And so it always starts from the top left. I'm going to give it 20 pixels. And then I'm going to give top right 30 pixels, bottom right 40 pixels, and 10 pixels for the bottom left. Okay, so now when I refresh this, we see 20 pixels, 30 pixels, 40 pixels, and 10 pixels. So that is how we do it. So if I just, and yes, let me just do this because I don't want to be overriding. Okay, so if I only set up 3, what this reads as 3 values. It means that the 20 is for my top left corner. The second value is going to be for my top right and my bottom left, right? So it's going to be top right and bottom left. And then the last value is going to be my bottom right. So this 40 is going to be bottom right. This 30 is going to be top right and then bottom left. Okay, so when I refresh this, you can see this and this have the 30, and then this is the 20. It always starts from the 20, but top left, and then this is your bottom right. So that is how it is. If you have only two values, right, then what happens is the first value is for the top left and bottom right, so it's more like a diagonal thing. So top left, bottom right. And the second value is for, and you guessed it, top right and bottom left. So let's refresh this. So you can see this and this have the same, and maybe this is too close to see, so I'm just going to do this. Right, so this and this have the same pixel, and this have the same border radius. So that is how to specify it. And then the one we did is if you just have one value, then all of them, all the corners will take that one value. Good. Now these borders all look round because they have the same uh, dimension. If you look at the edge, it's going to be, for example, this is a 20 pixel border radius, right? So it's going to be 20 pixel from the edge to the point right here, and it's going to be 20 pixels from here to here, right? And maybe I could just do this again, right? So for example, if this was 20 pixels, if I start to, maybe I can now make this like this. Okay, good. So because this is a rounded corner, it has the same pixel number from the edge to the point where the radius is, right? So from this edge to this will be the same as from this point to this, and that's how come it's a rounded corner. Right now, if we have a different dimension, for this and this is going to create what we call an elliptical corner, right? Because it's not going to be rounded, it's just going to be it's going to be a little rounded but not equally rounded like this. So let's take a look at an example. Good. So I'm going to create another one called round 3, and I'm going to style that differently again. So we are a little fast. I'm just going to copy this, and then I'm just going to refresh it so I have the same exact thing, right? So this is for round 3. So now with the border radius, I have to specify not just one value but two values, right? The first value is for the horizontal and the second value is for the vertical. So it's going to be, right, and I'm going to do 20 pixels for the horizontal length, and then I have to use this symbol, and then I'm going to choose something a little bigger, say 40 pixel right here, right? So this will make this one longer and this one shorter. So now when I refresh this, you see that this side is longer and this side is shorter. So it creates this type of elliptical shape. So you can do that to create different types of corners as you would like. Okay. Now, if you don't want to use this shorthand uh, for that kind of like affects all the edges or all the corners, you can go and do the usual one, which is, and I am going to, we have the border top, and we are going to look at the left side first, right? And I'm going to say radius, right? And then I could set that up for 30 pixels, and let's do elliptical and say for 50 pixels. Good, right? And so then now I can go and say for the border top right radius, I just want it to be 30. So this should be even, right? Rounded. So you can do that for the bottom right and the bottom left. But I'm just going to leave it this way, and then I'm going to refresh this. So you can see we have the elliptical 30 by 50, and then we have this being 30 pixels, so this is completely rounded, and these ones would take the default, which is this, because that still stays, right? So this takes the default, and then this two border left radius and border right radius changes to whatever I put here. So that is the change. That's the difference. So thank you guys for watching and see you in the next lesson. Thank you.